Hi, everyone. My name is Pat Erwin-Ploog. I'm the Assistant Dean of Library Services for Granite State College. And what I'm going to do today is give your class, which is the writing process, a broad overview of library services and take you into the Discovery Service, which is our digital library, and then follow up with some very specific things that I know you need to do to complete a current assignment in the class. So let's get started. I like to start by first of all talking a little bit about student services. And if you go into student services, we've outlined a couple of things that can be of great service to you. The first one is if you're having trouble or you just need a little assistance with creating a search strategy, I can help you with that. The second one is with your citations, and I do a lot of that with students. I can't look at your whole bibliography, but I can look at individual citations maybe you're struggling with or give you some advice. The third thing that I think you should know about is I hope you all have a GSC ID card. As part of our New Hampshire College and University Council agreement, with the GSC ID card, you can go into any academic library in New Hampshire, with the exception of Dartmouth, and check out the same resources their students have access to. So sometimes, particularly as you move into your capstone work or maybe more significant papers, we may not have exactly what you need. Contact me. I can tell you what library has the resource. Unfortunately, you have to go there and get it. But again, with your GSC ID card, you can check it out. So let's go back to the library homepage because there's a couple other things I want to mention. You know, in most traditional academic libraries, you walk in, there's a help desk, there are librarians to help you. Obviously, with a totally online library, we don't have that. So to kind of balance that out, what I've done is a very extended offer of research and reference help when classes are in session. You can email the library. This is my phone number, and I can also occasionally schedule a one-on-one session with you. I do this 7 days a week from 6 in the morning till midnight, and students use this service all the time. The idea is that we don't want you to get frustrated or to think that there's nobody in the library to help you. So please make use of this. Probably the thing you're most interested in is up here, the Start My Search. This is your gateway into our digital library. And we've made it as simple as we possibly can. There's some IT issues associated with why we have to have a separate login. And I always hope that at some point you'll be able to use your student ID and number, but we're not there yet. So user ID is Granite SC, and the password is also Granite SC. So we've tried to make it as simple as we possibly can. So you just log in, and this is what's known as the basic search page. Let me just show you a couple things about the basic search page. Under search options, you'll see full text. That means that anything you search, you're going to get the full text of the article, not just the abstract. You could turn it off. It's a default setting, but I would recommend you leave it on. The other is peer review. And If Amy has not talked to you yet about peer review, just a couple quick statements about it. This is a process by which articles submitted for publication are reviewed by experts in the field. So if I were a researcher, part of my career would be in publishing. And I would want to get my articles and my research in the best journal I could get them into. That journal needs to protect its credibility too. So I send them the article, they send it out to experts in my field. Usually it's a blind review, so they don't know me, I don't know them, no names are on the review. They send it back to the publisher and say, either it's fine the way it is, and that hardly ever happens, it's terrible, don't publish it, that hardly ever happens. It's usually a few changes that they want to make, so it goes back to the author makes the changes and resubmits the article. This is not a foolproof system, but it is a check and balance on the quality of the research and articles that you see in the library. And you'll hear a lot more as you progress through your GSC career on peer-reviewed articles. I might also mention that this whole process takes about a year from the time the article is submitted. So you can imagine that particularly in the sciences, a year is a long time to wait for maybe experiment results. So there are changes that are happening with peer review and journal publications, but right now that's what we have. I'm not going to turn peer review on right now. Up here, there are 3 types of searches: keyword, title, and author. Title is very sensitive. You have to have the title exactly correct, or you're going to get a response that we don't have the item that you want. Author is flexible, first name, last name, first name. Keyword, I think, is the one that most students gravitate towards. It is the type of search that Google uses. The good news is it's very flexible, just like Google. The challenge really is that we already know when searching Google that hardly anyone goes past the first page of results. And actually, it's the first 3 results. When you're using keyword searching in a library, you can't hold to that, that rule. You might need to go to the second or third page to see the results you want. So the more emphasis you put on thinking about your keywords, the better off you'll be. I want to do a simple search right now, and I'm going to do a very simple search on conflict resolution, and then show you a little bit about the results. So let's just, you can type that in. I have a number of searches saved because I do a lot of work for students and faculty. And you just click on search. First thing I want to show you is something that's called research starters. And right now there are over 1 million research starters in our digital library. These are written by experts in the field or librarians, and they're almost like Wikipedia for research. So say you were starting your paper or your research on conflict mediation, and you'll notice they use the term conflict mediation. I use conflict resolution. This would be a great start for your research, particularly if you didn't know a whole lot about the topic. You can click on it, and what you get is a nice long article that will give you concepts, vocabulary, an overview of the topic, and at the end, there is almost always a bibliography, which will lead you to other articles that might be of interest to you. So certainly make use of the research starters. They always appear at the very beginning of your search, if it's present, and are a great, really, doorway into your research. The next thing I wanted to show you is we did a search on conflict resolution. We got 2,576,000 results. Obviously, too many for you to look at. That also is an indicator that this wasn't the greatest search to run. Whenever you get a number that large, it means that you're either not being precise enough or perhaps your terminology isn't correct. But we'll start out with some very simple ways of cutting down on the number of hits that you get from your search. And I'm going to use the tools over here on the left navigation. The first one is, I didn't turn peer review on. So let's turn peer review on and see what happens. We're down to 834,000. It eliminated a lot of the articles and ebooks related to conflict resolution. And it's also an important point that although ebooks or books in general are reviewed, they're not peer reviewed. So whenever you're looking for ebooks, you have to make sure that peer review is turned off. And I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. The next tool is the date slider. And most of the time, the kind of research you'll be doing, you want the most current research. So you might slide this over to, well, let's say 2005. Okay, that eliminated another 200,000 hits. Then the ones that I use most frequently are language. Most of us are looking for English language articles. And then the other one, depending on your search, could be geography. For my purposes with this search, conflict mediation and resolution happens all over the world. But I'm really interested in how it's done in the United States. So I might turn on geography for this one. Okay, we cut it down to 21,000 hits. Still not great, but you get the idea of how effectively using your search limiters can cut down on the hits you get and really focus on those articles that are most relevant to your search. Okay, so now because we have full text turned on, you're going to get a PDF of any article that you get back. And you can click on that. And here's the full article. Just very briefly, if you were to look at this article and say, wow, this is exactly the article that I want for my research, there's a couple ways that you can use this article to find other articles. One of the first approaches is this is the abstract of the article. Oftentimes, depending on the journal, when you submit an article to a journal, they will ask you, the author, to identify keywords for their article. Those keywords, there'll be a little heading that says keywords, and afterwards, the keywords that the author has determined are relevant to the article will appear. So if you found this article useful, look for those keywords because they can lead you to other articles that you might find interesting and useful. The second way you can use this article is at the end, there's a list of references. Sometimes if you're working in the humanities, it will be called works cited, but it's always at the end of the article. And these are the references the author used in creating and writing this article. So there might be things here that are worth looking at for your own research. And then the final way you could use this article to find other articles is as researchers and scholars get more into their careers, they tend to really focus more and more on just certain topics. So you could do an author search on either of these authors, see what else they've written in this area of conflict resolution. You may find other articles that are relevant to your research. So that's 3 ways. Once you find one article that's useful, you can fan out to other articles through the keywords, the references, and author searches. The other tool that I wanted to make sure you were all aware of is over here on the right navigation. If I put my cursor over it, it says Cite. If you click on it, what you're going to get are the citations for this article in every format you can imagine. The writing process, I believe, uses MLA. So the first thing it does is it reminds you that your bibliography page is called Works Cited. Then you can copy and paste this citation right into your bibliography for your research paper. If you were using APA, which many classes do at Granite State, it would remind you that your bibliography page is called References. And again, you can copy and paste. Just a word of caution. I do a lot of teaching at GSC, and in my own classes, I tell my students, this is a great tool, but it doesn't get you off the hook in terms of correctness. I think our Discovery Service has done a great job of cleaning up these citations, but every once in a while, I'll find one that's not correct. And if you're just cutting and pasting, you're going to cut and paste an incorrect citation. And I'll show you what tools we also have in a minute for correcting or evaluating the correctness of these citations. So just be aware of that. It's not absolutely perfect. So let's go back to our results list. And remember, we did our keyword search on conflict resolution. If you were to write to me and say, I'm doing a paper in conflict resolution, I probably would start a conversation with you to kind of tease out some key things that would help you with your searching. And they tend to be the kinds of questions reporters ask: who, what, when, where, and why. So conflict resolution. Where's the conflict? Who's trying to resolve it? Is it current? Do you want a historical view? Is it legal? There are all different ways you could approach this very simple concept of conflict resolution. And I would say that if you spend some time thinking about what you really want to know about your topic, and even writing it out, you're going to spend a whole lot less time milling and kind of going through hundreds of citations, trying to find the perfect article for your research. So let's say I'm really interested in conflict resolution among middle school students and their use of social media. So I still got 31,000 hits, but I could refine this more. I could think about, well, what are some other words for middle school students? I might say, rather than social media, Facebook. But the big thing is, I want to show you the capital ands. These are what's known as Boolean operators or joins. What they do is they take these three concepts, and in the search algorithm, they join the three concepts into the search. They can be used very effectively. The key to using them, though, is really thinking about your terms. So if you remember, when we do conflict resolution, what we got was Research Starter for conflict mediation. So I might try that search. And then over here, you know, the more I'm thinking about this, I am interested in Facebook, middle school students, conflict mediation, but you know, I'm not interested in boys. I'm only interested in girls and this approach in this search. That's another Boolean operator. And the more you use these, the better you'll get at using them. There is one more that's an or, which, you know, I use sometimes, but the and not are the big ones. So let's see what we get when we've changed our search strategy. I got 1,600 hits, and I would have to look at each of these articles before I knew how many of those were really useful to me in my search. I might wind up going back to my original search and working with that one a little bit. One thing I could do here is just say girls. $489 is not actually bad as a first go around with searching. And one of the things that students say to me frequently is, well, this takes a lot of time. And they're absolutely right. Research takes far longer than I think most of us, when we're starting out, anticipate that it will be taking. You kind of have this idea that, well, I should just be able to search and find exactly what I want the first time. As someone who does this a lot for both faculty and students, a search, even a fairly simple search like this, can take me 2 or 3 hours over time to both think about the wording, what I really want to know or what someone else really wants to know, and then cull through the articles that I get. And, you know, I consider myself a pretty good searcher. I do a lot of it anyway. And I kind of have a realistic view of how long it's going to take me. So just keep that in mind. I think the other thing is, unless you're doing a full-blown research paper, it's 30 or 40 pages long, which might be your capstone, you don't have to have every single article. But it's all in both matching the assignment to your research and then thinking about, well, what do I really need to know to meet the guidelines for this assignment? And that kind of brings me to the next piece of this that I want to get to. And that is your assignment about thinking about journals in your field and evaluating information. So I'm going to take you back to the library homepage, and I may have to shut this down and reshare again. Moodle and the GSC Discovery Service are not, or I'm sorry, Zoom. Moodle's very compatible. Zoom is not always totally compatible with the GSC Discovery Service. So let me stop my share and go back to the library homepage. And I'm going to assume you all can see the homepage again. I wanted to show you a couple things. One of them is over here in research support. Guides linked to assignments. This is something I started last year, and I think I'll probably be doing more of it in the coming year, but there are some assignments that every class has to do, and one of them is journals in your field. So I think you all may know by now that articles are contained in journals. And this kind of gets into peer review because journals set the standards for the articles that they publish in their journals, and a peer-reviewed journal means that all the articles in that journal are peer-reviewed. So I know sometimes you're asked, either in critical inquiry or I think in the writing process too, find journals in your field. If you click on this, it's going to walk you through the steps of finding articles in your field. Another common assignment is find peer-reviewed articles. If you click on this, again, it will walk you through the steps. And then I want to take you over here. Let's go back to the home page. The library research guide is on every page of the library website. If you click on this, this is something I update every year, and it's really a guide to doing research at GSC. So I know that you have evaluating information. Under other types of research, and there are two places that you're going to find this. You're going to find evaluating information, evaluating the information you find, and evaluating social media sources. The first one, if you click on it, is really the introductory page that talks about why it's much harder to evaluate information today. Then it walks you through the CRAP method, which I think you're all familiar with. And actually, this method, the CARS method, and then another method that I have listed are all pretty much the same. They're all looking at currency. When you're looking at information, how current is it? And I'm going to step back a minute and say that your information needs are totally dependent on the context. You might want historical information or something written in 1920, if that's the kind of research you're doing. But for most of us, what we're looking for in most cases is the most current information. So you should be able to find it somewhere on the article, on the website. Sometimes it takes a little hunting on a website, but it's pretty important if you're looking particularly for scientific information. Relevance. Again, this is one that really, is it relevant to your needs? Your assignment might be to find 3 websites in your field. Well, first of all, you have to determine what your field is, your professional interests are, and then find websites that are really relevant to that need. You might look at the intended audience. Say you were going to be an HR specialist. Well, you can find a whole lot of information on the web about human resources. Some of it is simply rants by people who are unhappy with it, human resources, past employees, or people who don't like all sorts of rules and regulations related to how we hire people. The intended audience is other people who are unhappy about HR, but that's not really professional information that you might need if you were doing a serious study of human resources. Authority, that also gets into the relevance thing. Who are these people writing? Do they know anything about the topic? How do you know they know anything about it? And sometimes, if you're doing a really thorough job, you might question the authority. Look the person up. It's one of the things that is great about the web. You can almost always find somebody's credentials. But here is, again, it's a series of questions you can ask. Accuracy. You're starting out, maybe you're not really sure how accurate the information is. So run through these questions. And then finally, purpose. And this, again, gets into the issue of authority and relevance. What was the author's motivation for writing this information? And I think we see unlimited examples these days of people who have an agenda and are putting up information as though it's fact, for the purposes of either changing your mind or thinking about trying to get you to think differently about a topic. So, evaluating social media sources. I think this is becoming more and more important. One might think in a research paper, well, why would I ever want to look at a blog or Facebook postings? Same sorts of things you think about when you're evaluating social media sources. But more importantly is context and the reason. Today, if you were doing a research paper on our current president, it would be very hard not to look at social media and look at tweets, look at the kinds of things people are writing, and then be able to do an evaluation, particularly if you were thinking about social media as a legitimate topic for your paper. But you have to be careful, and you have to really think through what you're seeing, thinking about the author's motivations, thinking about the author's credentials for writing, and then doing a really good evaluation. I think the only other thing I'm going to mention here before I do talk a little bit about citations is thinking about implicit bias and in terms of evaluating information. We all have it. It's sort of activated in our brains without us even thinking about it. But we have to be aware. We have to be aware of the language that people use when we're looking at information. And thinking more about how your own thinking about a topic influences your own research. And even right down to the topic that you choose. I work with a lot of students on their research papers, and oftentimes it's because it's very, very personal to them, the topic. Either they've gone through the situation or they're experiencing something directly related. I would ask you to just think about that carefully before you start doing research on a topic like that, because you're bringing your own bias, your own feelings into it. And certainly if you were writing fiction or writing sort of a personal narrative or a reflection, that personal kind of connection to the topic is fine. It's not always so good for research. It kind of clouds your vision a little bit, so just be aware of that. So let's go back to the research guide and a more mundane topic. Under research integrity, this is in the research guide, you're going to find citation tools. And what we've got here, you've seen the citation generator that's used in the Discovery Service. Not everything that you research or everything you find is going to be in the Discovery Service, so you won't have that tool. There's something called the Citation Builder, and this is from NC State University Libraries. I like to talk to people about it because it works well. It's also, they got a federal grant to develop this, so we all paid for it through our taxes, and we should use it. What do I want to cite? Well, I think I want to cite a website, and I want to cite it in MLA. I then get this form where I complete all the information, and then I hit submit, and out spits my citation in MLA. Again, you still have to look at it to make sure that it's correct, but it can save you a lot of time. Okay. I also have links to the APA site, which I think is great. It's very, very thorough. They're doing a much better job of keeping up with new formats. For a while there, they were not paying much attention to things like blog postings and tweets. So I was getting a lot of questions from students about, well, how do I cite a blog posting? They're doing a better job with that. MLA is there. MLA is very low-keyed about what they have on their website in terms of help documents for using MLA, which is why I've included OWL's APA, MLA, and Chicago Manual of Style. And just a hint, Chicago Manual of Style, I think at GSC is only used for a history class and a political science class, which is their standard way of citations. I like OWL a lot, mostly because besides giving you a brief overview of the rules. They give you lots of examples. So that's citations. I think let's go back to the library homepage because I think we're coming to the end of things now. Just want to mention library workshops. There are a number of them. What I do now, I used to run them and just tell everybody when the dates were, and some people would sign up and then not show up. So now what I ask you to do is just contact me. I will set one up at your convenience. I'll do it for a class. I'll do it for one student or two students, and I can add other ones. Need be. So I feel like you all are really running the show with these. I'm very happy to do them. And I think the students who do attend get something out of them. So that's pretty much an overview of the library. Again, email, phone, don't get frustrated or feel like you just can't find anything. Just contact me and I can help you work through it. I hope you found this useful and have a good day. Bye.